Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am Nadine Greiner, and I'll be moderating today's panel, The Power of Truth in Advocacy. This panel is hosted by the San Francisco Vegan Society. So a big thank you to the San Francisco Vegan Society for inviting me to moderate today, and to Rachel, the president, for working closely with me on this project. We've got great panelists. We're joined today by Jack Gescheidt, founder of TreeSpirit Project, Leah Wilbourn, Farmed Animals Campaign Specialist at In Defense of Animals, Michael Rupena, lead organizer with Anonymous for the Voiceless, the San Francisco chapter, David Michelson, founder of Oregon's initiative Petition 28, IP 28, Jason Bolalek, animal care manager at Animal Place Sanctuary, Amber Canavan, associate director of vegan campaigns at People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA. So we'll begin with a brief self-introductions from each panelist in their own words, and then I'll guide us through the questions. With that, I'd love to invite our panelists to introduce themselves. Jack.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Really honored to be here. Jack Gescheidt of the TreeSpirit Project, an environmentalist all my life, a nature lover, also an animal lover, as it turns out, in ways I didn't know, being drawn into the vegan activist world. So I created, you can see a couple examples behind me, the the world's largest collection of naked tree hugging photographs, say with a straight face. And it was to raise awareness of the critical role that trees and forests and the natural world play in our lives. And that began in approximately 2004. And then 10 years later, I'm both proud to say and ashamed to say, I became what some activists call a cowspiracy vegan, meaning I saw a documentary called Cowspiracy in 2014, and that connected dots that I like to think I should have connected a lot sooner, which is the number one reason we cut down trees and forests globally is to raise cows for human consumption, both as beef, the meat of their body, and dairy, their mother's milk that we humans are the only species we drink. And that turned me into a vegan activist right away. So I use art, education, advocacy, and activism to raise awareness about all those intertwining issues, which also ties in, with the climate crisis. Its main accelerant and driver is also amazingly our eating animals.
Thank you, Jack. Leah.
Hi, I'm Leah Wilbourn. I am the Farmed Animals Campaign Specialist at In Defense of Animals. I went vegan in 2013 and have been involved in animal rights activism pretty much since then in numerous ways. I came across the truth, so that is kind of why I advocate for telling the truth and showing the truth. When I knew that maybe being vegan could be healthier for me, I'd known some issues about the environment and eating animals, but I didn't change until I came across and saw what animals really go through and connected the individuals to my heart. So I also work on occasion with allied scholars for animal protection, and I'm part of the Humane Hoax Project team, and hope that more conversations like this are happening across the animal advocacy space. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you, and welcome, Leah. Thank you. Michael.
Hi, my name is Mike Rupena. I'm the organizer for Anonymous for the Voiceless here in San Francisco. And I've been an activist for 5 years with Anonymous for the Voiceless. And I've been the organizer for over a little bit of 2 years. And I turned vegan about 6 years ago. I saw Dominion. And right away, about just a couple months shortly after that, I realized that I needed to speak up for the animals. I needed to defend the animals. They needed to be defended. And so that's what led me to Anonymous for the Voiceless. And I just want to say thank you to the San Francisco Vegan Society for having this today, for having us here, to Rachel, Nadine, and all of these wonderful activists. It's an honor to be here with you all.
Thank you, Michael. David.
Morning. Grateful to be here with everybody. My name is David Michelson. I am one of the chief petitioners for a 2026 ballot initiative in Oregon called IP28 that proposes to ban the injuring, killing, and breeding of animals statewide, including slaughtering, hunting, experimentation, etc. Happy to talk more about that as we continue with the panel. So, thank you.
Welcome and thank you, David. Jason.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Jason Bolalek. I work for Animal Place, one of the largest and oldest farmed animal sanctuaries in the United States. Before that, I was managing Rosie's Farm Sanctuary in the DC area. And before that, I was managing my own small calf rescue organization in the Northeast. And I'm very happy today to be here representing the animals.
Thank you, Jason. Amber.
Hi, happy to be here as well, and thank you for hosting this panel. My name is Amber Canavan. I'm Associate Director of Vegan Campaigns for PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And I mainly focus on farmed animal issues, but PETA works on all issues. Animals aren't ours to use for food, but for also experimentation, entertainment, clothing, or any other purpose. I myself am also a former cruelty investigator and also used to be, a campus activist and grassroots activist going on 25 years now.
Welcome, Amber. Thank you.
They're a bad person, they're more likely to be receptive to our messaging and to report on our campaign, I think, in a more favorable way. We did recently get some news coverage from outlets that were neither openly pro-animal ag and not necessarily pro-vegan either. Sort of, I'm sure they do believe in killing animals, these authors, but they were trying to at least maintain a middle perspective, so to speak. And I was impressed by their coverage. They often will use our language of needs and strategies in the reporting of it. The way they're framing our conversations, I think, are helpful. And I think that's so far demonstrating that our messaging is decreasing defensiveness. But we'll see as we campaign further.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move along to the third question now, which is about veganism. And is it the solution? So the question is, should animal protection organizations advocate for veganism as the solution to animal suffering? And also, do we need to clarify what vegan means? And so on this, I wanted to tap Amber again. And could you answer that for us, please?
Sure. Well, right in our mission statement there, I already kind of said animals are not ours to use eat, where used for experimentation or entertainment or any other purpose. So a lot of PETA's work does focus on farmed animals because that is by and large the absolute largest number of animals who are used and exploited for any particular purpose. When you're talking about land animals, it's in the billions. If you add in all the aquatic animals, it's in the trillions. It's literally, we don't even know how many aquatic animals. But yes, it's that's actually one of the questions I have when I do our vegan issues training for staff at PETA. I ask, is veganism just a diet? Is it a lifestyle? Is it something else? And, we would classify it as a lifestyle. When I first went vegetarian and then vegan, I actually had a leather jacket because I didn't realize that all those things were connected. So we do a lot of work, yes, with farmed animals, but also all of those other issues. Because again, people if you don't tell them, a lot of people don't realize what's so wrong with dairy, how, what's wrong with leather. They think it's just a byproduct and not a co-product. And again, because of this rise of humane washing, people are, convinced, they are diverted from being vegan, because these industries have convinced them that there's nothing to see behind the curtain and everything is fine here. And anytime we have gone in and investigated these industries that say nothing's fine, don't look behind the curtain, we are finding egregious abuse, both standard industry practices that are just the everyday norm, but additionally, workers abusing animals outside of the norm. So things are bad out there for animals in any way that they're being exploited. Whenever animals are used for profit, there's always going to be suffering involved.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Jason, should animal protection organizations advocate for veganism as the solution? What are you seeing? What do you think? What's your personal experience?
I think that we absolutely should be advocating for veganism, and we should help people understand that it's not a scary word. And if we are not advocating for veganism, then we are playing into industry hands. And that is a mistake. I think we need to connect people to the ethics because, as was previously mentioned, veganism is not a diet, it's an ethical stance. And when we help people connect to that ethical stance, it will transition to so many other things in their life. So I feel like veganism is the solution to so many of our problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much. Leah, you also have an interesting take on this about human supremacy. Can you tell us a bit more?
Well, sure. It's all kind of related, all of this. So, as far as the question, I agree with Amber and Jason and Mike. In my life and in my work with the organizations I work for, absolutely. It is, I feel, our obligation and our duty to advocate for veganism. If we are advocating as animal advocates for animal protection and we're leaving that out, that is playing into the hands of animal farming, animal exploiting industries. So I've really been on a mission to expose humane washing and to try to clarify. I wrote an article for In Defense of Animals, is vegan a diet? And yeah, my answer is no, it isn't. It is an ethical principle. And exactly what Jason said, I mean, it's when we start connecting people to the fact that veganism is not just about our health and what we're eating and how it can benefit us. It's expanding our perception of the world and realizing and connecting to speciesism. So I really think that if we are having campaigns that are focusing on just treating them better, and we are leaving out the standard practices in all animal farming, even cage-free. I mean, if we aren't bringing up the fact that all male baby chicks and their mothers are killed, that it's not cruelty-free, if we're not stating also exactly what Amber just said, that anytime anyone is being exploited, whether it's a non-human animal or a human animal, they will suffer. So we must deal with the root of the issue and not be afraid to do that. And also, it's not a binary choice between you're either screaming at people to go vegan or you're staying quiet and you're just having vegan potlucks and focusing on how yummy vegan food is and leaving out the animals. There is a beautiful middle ground that we can do it with wisdom and maturity. And it's really just do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I think most advocates, we just need more practice. We need all of us to come together, those of us who advocate for veganism plainly, and with maturity and respect for people, and saying to people, I didn't know either. I'm sharing this because nobody told me. And before I went vegan, the vegans I would come across, they talked about it as if it was a diet. That did not change me. What changed me was seeing the truth. So, yeah.
Powerful words. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's talk about our fourth question here about factory farming. So many advocates seem to focus on factory or industrial farming as opposed to all animal farming. And so, what are your thoughts on that? And I want to go back to Jason on this one because of where he works and what your daily experience is like with the animals.
Well, I firsthand can see the consequences of farming animals. And it's really important to help people understand there is no such thing as a farm animal. These animals are farmed. But this is a great misconception that we need to deconstruct. And I feel like if we are not talking about farming, we are now playing into the industry hands, right? They already dominate the narrative. So it's important to help people understand the greater landscape of what farming is, because we don't oppose the size of the operation. What we oppose is the guiding principles of farming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think Amber also might have some words to share, in your current role, but also in your previous role.
Right. We just actually, this came to mind. I'm going back to the humane washing, which I will talk about all day. We see repeatedly that these industries are marketing themselves better, and they are using marketing imagery and labels that invoke to the consumer that they are a small farm. You'll see a logo with a barn, you'll see a logo with grass, sunshine. You'll see marketing claims that are very carefully worded to make it sound a lot better than it is for the animals who are experiencing it. And I think that Jason might also speak to the fact that a lot of sanctuaries aren't full of animals from the largest factory farms. Sometimes the worst abuse and neglect cases are from these lower and smaller and medium-sized farms, where some of the most extreme neglect can happen. PETA just investigated a small goat dairy here in Oregon recently, and they had like one cheese supplier in California. So even those, people who say they buy the small local cheese at the farmer's market type of place or the high-end store, they're getting those products from animals who suffered greatly and were subjected to, again, the industry standards. So industry standards in the dairy industry are to forcefully impregnate animals and force them to have babies so that they will lactate and take the milk from them. Egg farming is a similar one. Cage-free is a label that has just blown up over the years. And these are factory farms. Cage-free sounds really nice. The animals aren't in cages. But what that means is that the industry is still doing all of the 99 million other horrible things to the animals. They are still debeaking them. They're still sourcing them from hatcheries that killed all the male chicks. They are still being crammed wing to wing with sometimes as little as 1 square foot of space per bird, and a million other problems that we would need a whole other panel to get into. And that's misleading to consumers. They think they're doing something good when they choose those labels. And they are literally sometimes the same factory farms with just the cages inside removed. and the walls of the flesh of other birds becomes the walls of their cages. And it's not a solution. And more investigations are coming out documenting the horrors of cage free, just as one example. So whenever you're trying to reform these industries, there are just so many problems inherent in them. It's also not just the factory farming system themselves, it's also the breeding. So these birds are being bred to lay so many more eggs than can ever be healthy or sustainable for their bodies. Cows have also been bred to produce so much more milk at the detriment to their own health. And same goes, probably the worst example would be chickens used for their flesh. These broiler breeds is what they call them, who are bred to suffer. They are slaughtered, right before they'd all be killing over dead. And you can take those birds out of the factory farm, but you can't take the factory farm out of those birds. Mm-hmm. And I'll stop myself there. But
thank you, Amber. Thank you so much. Well, let's get a little personal here. I would like to hear from the panelists, and starting with Jack. What's your journey been towards veganism? Everybody's journey is so different. And so can you please describe, Jack, tell us a couple of the pivotal events that were cathartic to you and led you to be on your journey towards veganism, and give us an idea of where that was, how that was, and how long ago that was, how old you were, just because you referenced your age before. I'm curious.
The 30-second version or the 300-minute version? Which would you like?
No. 30 seconds is great. Thank you, Jack.
And you're welcome. I can't do it in 30 seconds. Next question. So, age 14, I'm living in Mount Kisco, New York, up alone at night on a black and white television set, kids, with a curly-coated phone cord. And I saw a documentary on PBS Channel 13 called Meat. I remember that name at age 14, 1974. Do the math. And I saw my first documentary footage of slaughterhouse line. Cows walking down, being bolt gun to the head, pulled up on a hook, chainsaw down the belly, entrails come out on the floor. Black and white footage. And I was traumatized. And this is the argument sometimes I hear from non-vegans actually, saying you shouldn't show that stuff as traumatizing. Well, it was. The trouble is, unlike what Mike does with AV, where they show you this and then they talk to you and comfort you because everyone's been through this as an activist, knowing how terrible it is. I had nowhere to go to. I didn't know what vegetarianism was. I didn't know any vegetarians, let alone vegans. The word didn't exist in 1974. But that was a memory that went in because I saw the truth. And there's no escaping that. And then, I could do a lot more in more time here, but then it was seeing Cowspiracy, the movie, where, it's just, God, 40 years later that I then connected the dots to where I was. So there's other traumatic and pivotal moments. And that was the final straw that, in my case, unlike some people who go to an AV Cube and they go through what I went through over 40 years in a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm a huge believer in that kind of advocacy. My journey was emotional, and I had tremendous resistance, and I'm, like everybody else, a huge product of the cultural conditioning. It's this giant fabric of lies covering the truth. And my last thing is a quote I love, inspired, I just heard this a couple of years ago. St. Augustine said, "The truth is like a lion. There's no need to defend it. Let it loose, and it will defend itself." So I'm all for saying vegan, yes, and speaking the truth, yes. And you can do it, as Leah said very articulately, gently and with compassion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jack. David.
Yeah, happy to share my story a little bit. So I also 14, interestingly enough, or at least that age was important. I went vegetarian, and it was on my birthday. there were animal products on my birthday, and I saw them, and I thought this is going to be the last day. I had some vegetarian friends, and so I was able to, but I didn't have any vegan friends, importantly. So I only knew vegetarian as an option. And so it occurred to me, I don't want to eat animal. I don't want animals to die. I sort of thought, okay, well, they don't have to be killed for milk or eggs, so therefore there's probably some good version of it out there, is what I told myself at the age of 14. Um, so I was vegetarian for quite a while. My vegan transition is not very inspiring. Potentially, I heard about how much cholesterol was in eggs from my boss at the time. I was telling her about what I ate in the mornings, and I cared a lot about cholesterol. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get rid of that. And then I started dating a partner who was lactose intolerant. He was not vegan, but was willing to go vegan, basically. And I was willing to ditch dairy. And so we sort of went vegan together. And I wanted more vegan community, so I was learning more about, what vegans were in the area. In that process, I came across Dominion, and then I started doing activism. That was the switch for me into activism, was seeing what was happening. And I remember pausing a few minutes. I mean, it was maybe like 10 or 15 minutes in, and I was already crying and had to watch it over a couple different sessions over a few days. But yeah, then I went into activism and haven't left since. So
Have not looked back.
yeah.
Amber, tell us about your journey in veganism, and especially the couple of pivotal events. What happened with you?
I also am I went vegetarian and got involved in the animal rights movement when I was 14, actually.
14.
So something about that. We got to maybe get on that, some marketing targeting the 14-year-olds, because something is going on there. But yeah, I was lucky enough to have, our school got a computer lab in it. We had the dial-up AOL, and I found, that some of the very early animal rights groups who were online, and one of them was PETA. I think there's another one that might not even exist anymore, and they just info dumped a bunch of stuff on there, and that was really helpful to just, I saw a lot of things when I went on that website and learned about all these industries. That, and then getting in touch with PETA, joining their PETA 2 street team, which was the perfect thing for a rebellious 14-year-old at the time, and getting involved in a local group. And that's, I think, one of the other really important things I wanted to talk about today is how important local activism is, and supporting grassroots activists, and like getting out there and doing that activism, because it really does back up and reinforce the things that the national groups are doing. Really rely on the people on the ground in their communities too, backing up those campaigns.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go to Jason. What was your personal journey towards veganism?
I started my journey a bit later in life, and it started with scrolling through Instagram, and I came across, probably my algorithm was showing me different animal videos, and I came across some activist videos, and I clicked on piglets being murdered in a slaughterhouse, and I was shocked, and I couldn't process it all right away. But as I look back on it, I realized this was a pivotal moment for me, because it made me go vegetarian immediately after seeing those piglets, seeing their faces. I saw my dog's faces in their faces. So it was an immediate connection. But I still didn't understand. I couldn't comprehend why someone would show that, even though here I am making this change. So, I moved on from that. I made a commitment to go vegetarian because it just turned me off. The idea of flesh turned me off. A couple of years went by. My life moved on. I was in Vermont for work reasons, pursuing a career path. And while I was there, I was coming into contact with small farming communities. Vermont is very dairy, small farm dairy, cheese heavy. As a state, it's the backbone of their economy. So while I was there, I heard a story from a farmer who explained that they shoot the young calves, the boys in the farms, because they will never produce milk. And I was shocked. So I realized that I could actually save a couple since they shoot them anyway. So I decided to make this trip to meet this farmer and talk to him about surrendering a couple calves to me. And when I went in the farm, veganism made sense. That's when it all connected. Because when I saw calves on chains to a wall, mothers separated from their babies, I realized veganism was not about me. I realized it's a much bigger picture. I got it then. I realized the butter in my fridge that I was enjoying, it didn't matter as much anymore. So I started to then backtrack and connect dots with social media, exposing the truth, how it affected me. So I ended up doing a rescue. First, let me say, when I walked out of that farm, I was vegan. There was no question, because my perception of what farming was up until that point was still dominated, created by the myth of farms, pastures with cows on them, rolling hills, Holsteins enjoying their grass and going off into the red boxes. Well, now I got to see inside the red box and what happens in there, the stench, the cries. That was it. That was my pivotal moment, but I ended up doing a rescue, and then one rescue led to the next and the next. And I was able to use that tool of social media to expose the truth, share their stories. So it's been an incredible journey from there.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we've got a brief story from Michael about Dominion, I think, right? And then we got to move on.
Yes, my story is pretty brief. It did start as a health issue. To clarify, though, I was vegetarian because I had had a pulmonary embolism and I almost lost my life. And the next thing I knew, I had all these different doctors that, I had a pulmonologist, a cardiologist, and all of these doctors trying to shove pills down my throat. The cardiologist in specific wanted me to take blood cholesterol medicine. And so I had looked up natural ways to lower my cholesterol. Plant-based diet came up, so I started looking into that. But as I was looking into that and I dug deeper, I just kept digging deeper and deeper. I came across the word vegan. I had no idea what vegan was at that time. And so when I started to learn about the animals, that's when I saw Dominion pop up on Google somewhere, right? And so I remember sitting in my car out at the marina in San Francisco, my little iPhone, just said, "Hey, I'm going to watch this documentary and see what it's all about." I put that documentary on no longer than 15 minutes into it. I was crying like a baby. I mean, it punched me so hard in the gut. It hit me so hard. I was looking into those animals' eyes and just feeling their pain and feeling the uncomfortable guilt that I felt was just horrible. I felt so bad. And right then and there, after about 15 minutes, I just said, "That's it. I can't do this. This is wrong. This is wrong on so many levels." And I just felt it. And so I watched the rest of the documentary because I felt I owed it to the animals to see everything, all the different industries and what happens to all of them. But right after I watched that, I also sat out at the marina probably for another hour and Googled how to go vegan. How do I do, and from there, that was it. And then just a few months later, I wanted to speak up because I knew that just going vegan, I wanted to get this word out there. I wanted people to understand. I felt isolated at first. My friends and my family, I was the only one that was vegan. So I felt like I needed to get out there and tell the world, because I figured for sure when I tell the world, they're all going to go vegan, right? Once they know this. But that's what got me started right there.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Okay, team of panelists, we have one sentence. So one sentence you want the audience to leave with. So I'll start with Jack. One sentence, Jack, and then I'll go down the line.
If you care about the environment, if you care about your health, if you love animals, which most people do, usually cats, dogs, horses, things are around, but all animals, the easiest way to make the biggest change today and every day, multiple times every day, is to stop eating animals, wearing animals, using animals for entertainment, and go vegan.
Yes, exactly. Leah.
All right. Life is too short to prioritize what society and others think over what is in your heart and what is right to say and do for the most vulnerable and ignored. So speak up for all animals the way you would want someone to speak up for your dog or you, because every time you do, you plant seeds for a better world for them and for all of us. And all it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And that applies now more than ever.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Michael.
The truth is powerful, the truth is uncomfortable, and the truth is exactly what the animals need humans to face.
Yes. Thank you. David.
Asking for the world that you want can be a way to meet your own needs for honesty. And when your own needs are being met, you will have the energy to keep asking.
Mhm.
Thank you. Jason.
I'm going to read a Martin Luther King quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Thank you. Amber.
Just never be silent. And the animals need us so, so much. Their freedom is beautiful and their suffering is just a horror. And I do want to make sure people know that we're there to support people. We will send any free materials, posters, leaflets, anything people need to help them get started on their activism journey or restarted. Maybe they're on a break and want to come back in.
Thank you. All right. This is the last question before we go to Q&A. It's a closing round question, a lightning question. So one concrete call to action. And we'll start with Jack again.
Oh, don't do that, please. I pass.
You told me you're good in the moment. You think quickly.
Yeah, okay, sure. Put me to it. So,
Okay.
well, it would be to explore veganism. I have on my TreeSpiritProject.com website, I've got a page /vegan, and there's all the films we've been talking about here, including Dominion and Earthlings. Go to that page. Please check it out. Rather than a specific campaign for me, I just want to advocate for education overall. Please turn toward the truth. It's not necessarily easy. I don't advocate veganism as being easy, but it's simple and it is incredibly rewarding. And I feel such a bond with all these people that all of you, that we share this really powerfully visionary, revolutionary perspective on how we humans can treat animals that we all love lovingly. It's so simple. My God, can't we do that?
Can't we do that indeed? Yes. Okay, one concrete call to action, Leah.
Well, there really isn't one. Live vegan, but speak up. Living vegan, unfortunately, is not enough. So we need everyone. Those who know have an obligation to tell and share what they know. For the latest news and articles, I just wrote an article promoting the Yes on IP28 campaign. So go to idausa.org/farmed animals and click on latest news and you'll see all the new alerts. We're also going against the AVMA, who is actually in bed with animal farming. We need to expose the fact that they are telling the public that certain policies and ways that farmed animals are being killed is acceptable, and none of it is acceptable. So get involved, and I would say support organizations that tell the full truth and clearly advocate against all exploitation, that aren't afraid to state that clearly, and get involved, share on social media, join meetups. Of course, support is so important. Activism with groups who advocate for veganism also, and volunteer at farmed animal sanctuaries. They need our help now more than ever. Write, use your art, create art, and build community.
Thank you so much. Yeah, one call to action, Michael.
Yeah, align your actions with your values. You can go to cubeoftruth.com and see why you should be vegan. For vegans, you can go to jointhecube.com. If not you, then who? Who do the animals have besides us vegans to advocate for them, to be their voice, right? Because they're the most silenced beings on the planet. So we're just asking you to align your actions with your values.
Exactly. That's a great call to action. Let's see, one concrete call to action, Jason.
I have a specific call to action. Bring a non-vegan friend to a sanctuary. There are amazing rescue organizations all over this country. They're not hard to find. Bring a non-vegan friend.
Where is your sanctuary, Jason?
So our main location, Animal Place's main location, is in Grass Valley, but I'm here in Petaluma.
Great. David.
If you are interested in supporting our campaign, One Concrete Action, we've collected over 100,000 signatures, but we still need about 40,000 more and we have until July to get them. If you are able to come up to Oregon for any amount of time between April and end of June, email me, david@yesonip28.org. I can help you get set up to come out and visit. We have limited accommodation available for people and can help facilitate that. So if you want to come out and help collect signatures, you do not need to be an Oregon resident. You do not need to be a U.S. citizen. You do not need to be of voting age. Anyone can help collect signatures. So please, we would love the extra support to get the rest of the way there.
Thank you, David. Amber, one call to action, concrete call to action.
Visit PETA.org/action team to join our action team and get connected with our grassroots coordinators to help you out in whatever activism needs you have.
This is a surprise to Rachel, but I was wondering if Rachel, the president, had a concrete call to action.
I think I need to be spotlit, but yes, I mean, I do actually. Well, to attendees, my call to action would be to come and join the San Francisco Vegan Society and be part of our growing, engaged community. And obviously to support all the work of the amazing panelists that we have here today, to learn more about it and support them. And then to our panelists, I also have a call to action, which is that when you have these conversations, these powerful conversations, right, that can really shock people out of their complacency and create cognitive dissonance, what my understanding is that can really have a very good, like a very beneficial short-term impact. But what really keeps people in veganism is community. And at the San Francisco Vegan Society, we're really trying to create that community. So maybe you can tell them about our monthly potlucks that board member Ian Veronin started and the other events that we have. Send them to SFVS so that they can find other vegans and find some community, because the studies do show that the major reason people leave veganism is because of loneliness. And that is really sad and not something we ever want to happen. And in the Bay Area, we have a way to build those connections. Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you. She had no idea that was coming. Okay, but it gave me a chance to read the many Q&As that came through, the many great questions. So one is simple, and remember, we want relatively short answers. David, what is the one specific issue why people are opposed to your initiative? By the way, good for you for taking on an enormous issue. We should all follow suit.
That one is tough because I don't think there's one specific issue. I can say that the hunting groups and the Farm Bureau have been the most vocal so far. I think that experiment like OHSU, a hospital here that runs the National Primate Research Lab, they have not commented on us. I don't think they would until we get on the ballot. I think larger institutions are going to avoid saying anything. I think smaller groups are more vocal at this moment. But because our initiative touches on so much, it really isn't one issue. And I think that's the beauty of it, but it's hard to answer the question.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think I might direct this one at Amber for a very brief answer, if you can. It's a lengthy question, however. During COVID, I was genuinely dismayed at how many self-identified vegans treated the COVID vaccine as an exception, even though its development and testing relied on extensive animal experimentation and horrific testing. Critics argue that this is specious because it accepts animal suffering as an acceptable cost for human benefit. How do you respond specifically in the COVID vaccine case? What is the non-speciesist justification, and what limiting principle stops emergency from becoming a standing permission to use animals whenever the stakes feel high? So like I said, all opinions are welcome here. We don't have to resolve all our differences. I think it's impossible to do anyway, but in a minute or less, does PETA have a stance? And if not, what's your personal response?
That is a lengthy question. I'll try to touch on it briefly. PETA is working on ending the use of especially primates right now in experimentation. So that involves getting the science switched over to human relevant non-animal methods for them. We're also working on stopping the monkey pipeline. So these are monkeys who are either bred or more often live caught from other countries and are being imported into the United States for experimentation. So we're doing a lot of work on that. We've gotten a lot of airlines to stop flying them around. We're recently seeing them trucking them, and one crashed and monkeys got out. So we are working on the back end to get animals out of experimentation on the front end. But touching on like veganism, you can't do activism if you're dead. So this is also kind of a criticism I've heard come up from time to time. Some medications and medical treatments, there's no way around it. The law dictates that they need to be tested on animals, and there's nothing else available for people. So that, if again, you can't advocate if you're dead. So people need to sometimes take medications that by law had horrible things happen to animals, while at the same time we're advocating to get those animals and replace them with human relevant alternatives.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think this might be actually our last question, sadly. Jack, what's the most current news in Marin about Point Reyes, National Seashore, and cow farming? Do you have an update for us by chance? I visited the seashore, San Francisco, and Marin last May, and I was gobsmacked by miles and miles of cows near roads in or very near a national park property? Thank you very much in advance for an update.
Yeah, thank you. That I actually know how to answer. There was a major win last year. It's a 14-month, 15-month, 16-month transition for 12 of the 14 ranchers to leave the park, and the elk are now freer than they've ever been. There's a lot more work to be done. And then the bizarre issue is that the Nature Conservancy, a separate group which put up millions of dollars to pay ranchers for the second time, they don't own the land, they haven't for years, to leave the park, is they're going to bring in more cows, the Nature Conservancy cows, to graze the grasses down because they consider a fire hazard. That's absolute nonsense. There should be no cattle at all. There are still 2 ranchers that didn't take the money and are staying, and they're going to get long-term leases. So we're going to be doing another heavy round of advocacy to get all the ranches out and all the cows out, because it's a national park. There should be no private, certainly exploitative, let alone any private businesses of any kind in a national seashore. You can get involved. Again, go to my website. I've got an elk page. And then coincidentally, on February 21st, which is what, 3 weeks away, actually on a Saturday to the day, I'm actually going to be doing a tour combined with an iPhone photography class. That's on my TreeSpiritProject.com events page. So we have won a huge round. We've got 12 of the 14 ranchers out, 2 remain, and the Nature Conservancy, who's kind of a good player, is also a messy bad player that wants to bring in cows again. And we activists are going to hit them hard and go to the public and educate them that there should be no cows in the park whatsoever.
Wow. We'll be with you. All right. Now is the time to wrap up the Q&A. I want to thank our panelists. We were so lucky to have you come on and dedicate your Saturday morning and preparation time during the week. So thank you, not just for coming on to this San Francisco Vegan Society panel, but also for the work that you do every day out there in the field. Thank you for your skills, your experience, your expertise. So thank you to the panelists. It made it just great to work with you, and it's wonderful for the audience to be able to listen to this webinar and learn from really the best in our movement. So thank you, and I want to thank Rachel and the San Francisco Vegan Society. And with that, for closing remarks, I'm going to pass over to Rachel.
Thanks, Nadine. I want to add my very sincere thanks, both to the attendees, the panelists, and to you. Speaking for SFVS, I think this conversation was deeply meaningful, and it was also a new format for us. I know I learned a great deal, and I hope it gave everyone here some new insights, questions, or connections to carry forward. Panelists, thank you so much for your honesty, depth, and willingness to engage thoughtfully. I think these conversations like this are essential to a healthy movement. Nadine, thanks for your skillful moderation and holding space for both clarity and nuance throughout this discussion. In closing, I just wanted to reference a book I read recently, John Sanbon-Matsu's book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. Deception. Deception, The Omnivore's Deception. See how quickly one sort of reverts to earlier titles. So in it, he reminds us that past abolitionist movements were once criticized for being uncompromising, for rejecting reforms that would make a very horrible, unjust system a little less unjust, a little more palatable. And again, I think we've learned that the problem isn't the excesses of an unjust system, but the system itself. And that real change begins when people are willing to name that clearly, even when it's very uncomfortable. And I think that's what all of our panelists do every day. And we are very, very grateful for that work. We are looking forward to hosting more conversations like this in the future, more spaces for dialogue and learning and shared commitment to compassionate living. Thank you all again for being part of this today. And if you're not a member of SFVS yet, I hope you'll visit our website and join us. Thank you again.